Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and using war in your Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign. So, actually, war is really interesting in Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaigns because of how it can be used and how it really does serve as an X times a multiplier for adventure. So, basically, if you have, let's talk bog standard loader setting, which is traditional D&D. Humans, dwarves, elves, right? If they're at peace and there's no war between those three cultures, right, you're going to have your traditional dungeon crawls. You're going to have your traditional questing after a magic item, things like that, right? But if you put war in the middle, then there's so much more to do, right? So you can have characters who are on either side. You can have characters who are profiting from selling to both to one side or the other side or both sides, right? You can have messages being carried covertly. You can have supplies being carried, right? You can have guard duty on any or all of those jobs, right? Everything they do, right? Traveling from dungeon to dungeon becomes more dangerous and more exciting, right? Wars are horrible in real life, but they're very exciting in Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Now, when should you introduce war into your Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition game? Well, if your game is dragging and you're not having a lot of adventure and your adventures aren't landing with the oomph that you want, you can start a war incredibly quickly for small reasons in your Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition game, and it will totally be realistic. Why is that true? We just learned this with Brexit. I couldn't believe it. This last week, this is crazy. So, France and England, they are now, Brexit happened, Britain is out, right, and out of the European Union, and now that Britain is out of the European Union, they have sovereign rights over their fishing waters again, right? But the French have been fishing in those waters for decades. So they're not super happy to hear that they can't be fishing in those waters that previously they had the rights to fish over just because some little thing called Brexit, right? Well, within the last month, within May of 2020, unbelievable. This is absolutely incredible. There were warships in English waters because there were French fishing boats in the water. Britain brought out warships, because France had the audacity to put unauthorized fishing boats in their water. Absolutely incredible. So Brexit was just some unsigned papers, right? And then over fishing rights with two of the most civilized countries in the world, they are already looking at warships in the water over fishing rights, right? So you can bring a war into your Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition for the most ridiculous, small, petty reasons, and it's totally going to be believable in your fantasy world because we get to the verge of war over the most ridiculous things in our own IRL world, right? So that's one of the things too is like you can really like pull the doors off on your Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign and just do some crazy stuff because we live in a crazy world where all kinds of... I mean, who on earth would think that there would be warships involved between the British and the French over fishing rights in 2021? That is incredible, right? And I have to say, I definitely do not want war to happen between Britain and France. But boy, did my ears perk up when I read that story. I was like, are we looking at a modern war between France and England? I absolutely do not want that to happen. I'm like very, very... Because I wouldn't want a single French citizen or a single British citizen to die over that. But, like, when it comes to news, you can bet I'm going to be reading everything I could possibly read about the emergence of a modern war between France and Britain over fishing rights. Like, and the idea... And, I can't tell you the interest it's already sparked, right? Because now I'm looking for those articles because of the possibility that war would erupt over fishing rights between two of the most civilized nations in the world. But they are bringing out warships. Like, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So there's just no question. If you look at IRL, war is incredibly fascinating. It brings a multiplier to adventure, right? There's no two ways about it. It will absolutely bring a multiplier to adventure in your Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. You can introduce it at any time when your game stalls and you're not seeing the adventure you need. It's going to perk interest, right? So just go ahead and insert a war right into your Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. It's going to give you a little pop, a little pep, right? There's no cost, and unfortunately, unlike France or Britain, in a Dungeons & Dragons game, no blood lost. I hope they can find peace between all this. Truly incredible. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think about using war in your Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.